I had joined the Navy. It was a 6-year Naval Reserve program, and 2 of those years would be spent on active duty in the Navy on a ship or wherever they wanted me. Went into the Navy, Treasure Island, which is in San Francisco Bay, and waited to be assigned to my duty station, which turned out to be the USS Midway, an aircraft carrier. And shortly after going aboard her, we shoved off for the Western Pacific, called Westpac. I was on the signal bridge, which means I was up above the flight deck on the bridge where the captain, the admiral, and all the brass were. My job was to be able to read Morse code of a flashing light from another ship. And it was my job on the receiving end to call out the letters that the other ship was sending me. Like 2,000 posit report, and then the writer would write all that down and then take it to the people that would need to see it. Flying was all the time, morning, noon, night. The main deck of an aircraft carrier is what they call the hangar deck. And the flight deck, where they take off from, is like at the O2 level. That's where my bunk was. The airplanes, when they landed on the aircraft carrier, landed right here. Right about here, about 6 inches. And at first, it was ridiculous. I mean, you could hear them coming, that screaming sound that a jet makes, and then it hits the deck, wham! Like everything else, you finally get used to it. It doesn't bother you after that. They have a tail hook in the back of the plane that comes down, and when he hits the deck, that hook slides along the deck and catches one of 6 wires that stops the plane. In this particular case, his was just flopping around. It would not, he tried touch and go, touch and go, touch and go, it didn't work. And finally they said, okay, we're gonna have to rig the barrier, grab this thing that was on the side of the ship, bring it into the middle of the ship, connect it, and then bring it up. So it's a big net, and he's got to land on the deck and drive into that, because if he doesn't land on the deck and he hits that thing, it's going to flip him. He landed perfectly and went into that barrier perfectly and came down the flight deck, and all of a sudden made a hard right turn. He stopped this far from hitting the ship. And then he said he rocked back and kind of looked up, and I was right above him looking at him, and I just went, yes, sir. And he saluted me, and that was that. We had to rescue a fighter pilot whose aircraft had malfunctioned. I yelled to one of my shipmates. I said, I see him. I'm going to get on these bottles. Found him coming down in his parachute. I mean, it was like a movie. I watched him come all the way down. He came back to the ship and heads for the island where I am. And I found out later that he went down to purchasing, got a $100 bill, went and found a guy named Hungerford who had packed his parachute. He said the one thing he feared when he hit that ejection button was, God, I hope this parachute works.